job.
Okay, commissioners, we're getting ready to read.
But you wouldn't want me if I
want to see.
wouldn't.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We're going to reconvene an open session. We'll begin with commissioner reports and comments. Vice President Baker, would you start?
Yeah, I don't have it. Oh, actually, I do have one. I didn't read it fully, but I saw where Governor Hogan may have given the state employees an extra day off or a Monday off or something like that.
Friday.
Friday. I didn't know if that would be worth. I don't know how that would affect us. Or
Yeah, I had a lot of calls.
Like to look into.
Is there a fiscal impact that you could figure on that?
Any idea what the Friday was?
July 5th. July 4th is a Thursday, and I think Governor decided to do like an extended holiday for state employees.
You would like, we won't meet again before that. Would you like to give some direction on that?
Yeah, well, we'd like he said, the fiscal impact. Let's see exactly how the
Well,
state's handling it and see if something that we might want to entertain.
One of the problems, pardon me for interrupting on your comment, one of the difficulties you might have, people have already assigned and took vacation day for the long weekend. That will create some discussion. Yeah, that's why I said that.
Just something to look at and let us know.
Would you like to reconvene as a board to discuss this? Because anything of that nature, we would certainly have to have your approval on.
Maybe after our meeting today.
Send us a report. Get us a report first. Then we'll decide. Mr. Baker, my apologies for adding on. All right. Commissioner Kiefer, you're up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to remark on yesterday afternoon. I had a meeting out by the airport, and as I was going under the runway there on Route 11, it occurred to me that I didn't notice any change in daylight. The new lights are being put up under the runway. It looks very nice, and the lights are really nice and bright, so you can certainly see. I didn't lose my cell phone signal either, so I don't know if that's related to it or not. Probably not, but it looks very nice. I saw the cherry picker there putting on maybe the last 4 or 5 lights were going in, so it looks very nice. So, good job.
So the cherry picker, that's a robot that puts the lights in?
And the human was there too. Thank you.
Right, Wayne, anything else?
That's all.
All right. Mr. Wagner, Commissioner Wagner.
Morning. It's been, 2 weeks since we've had a meeting, so there's been a lot going on. I'm sure President Klein can fill you on some of his functions. We were out at the 60th anniversary for DM Bowman. Volvo Power Days. I didn't make it out there. I went to a Pegasus, which is a club that put on a pretty big show this weekend. They called and wanted a couple of commissioners to show up, so I slid out there. I think on a more serious note, something that's been on my mind is I was pretty disappointed in City Council a week ago tabling a motion to fund our 911 dispatchers. I felt sort of blindsided by that. It was in the paper the next day. I knew about it just before that. You know, basically, I don't know what the motive is, whether it's strategic or political, but we just busted our butts up here for 6 months trying to shore up our fire and rescue, which needs some help right now. So they basically, as far as I'm concerned, tabled a motion to fund us the $5,000 to our first line of dispatchers. I mean, that's our first line. Nothing happens without 911, you know, unless somebody's riding by a house in a fire truck and just seems to be on fire. So, yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with that. I'm waiting to see. There's more to come on that, I'm sure. But it makes no sense after we've been working. And plus, you know, that goes, they didn't fund CRS completely either this year. So we're up here. You know, sometimes you vote for things that you don't really like to vote for, like a little bit of tax increase we did to help with shore up our emergency services. I feel like that maybe, you know, we're spinning our wheels here. We need some help. And, you know, we're trying to, sometimes you make votes that aren't popular, but, you know, I don't vote politically. I can tell you that. I don't have a political career in front of me. But I can tell you one thing, you know, you can say what you want, call it corny, but I think most of us vote for the best of the community and the citizens, and I think fire and rescue is the best. So anyway, that's my disappointment for the week. That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Mimo Schmidt?
First, I just want to say happy birthday to Commissioner Wagner, a belated birthday. So, and again, I apologize, I went here 2 weeks ago, so we've got a lot of things. We went to the Special Olympics Awards banquet. Commissioner Wagner was there, it was excellent. Great evening, a lot of fun. The 60th anniversary for Don Bowman, a huge milestone, and a great company and great man running that. But the big thing is, 2 weeks ago, I was at two meetings. One was the NACO meeting, which is National Association of Counties. And I just want to let everybody know there's a new app that NACO is sponsoring. It's called Test IT. And I'd like this to get on our website and for everybody to download it. It's a free app. And what this does, currently, the service providers report to the FCC what their upload and download times are for both Wi-Fi, internet service, and your cell service. And then that's how we get federal funding back, is by what they're reporting. Until now, there's no way for anybody to test it. So NACO and a few other groups came together, created this app. It's a free app. All it does is you click on it, and it'll take 30 seconds, and I'll do it while we're here. And it says, test my speed here. I click it. It's going to record what my upload speed, my download speed, the time, and the location. You don't have to put a credit card in. You don't have to put your name, anything in that. And then it records and reports back to NACO and the group what those speeds were and if they are compliant with the FCC. And I just hit test my speed, and we'll come here in a couple seconds. And I've been doing this for the last 2 weeks. Give me 1 second. And right now, the download speed is 15.46 megs. The upload speed is 4.6. And then it says your connection is below the FCC benchmark. And so now that's being recorded. And that is going to help us and help all the areas across the country get the federal funding so that we have the current speeds, or the correct speeds. So I thought that was exciting. But more importantly, after the NACO meeting, I was, privileged enough to attend the Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia State Leadership Day at the White House. And we got to talk to Senator Ben Carson. There was John Mell, who was the trade representative. Then we had a good discussion for infrastructure panel and community revitalizations. I know I've been talking to the principal deputy secretary, I think it is, of Department of Transportation, and working with Williamsport. Now we're going to work with West Virginia for the I-81 bridge, being allowed dump trucks to cross that bridge instead of having to drive through Williamsport. And we're already in process of that. I think it's going to be, it can move forward and help Williamsport so we don't have to have dump trucks going through the town and can cross 81. So in 2 weeks, I think that's already been a very beneficial meeting. So there's my report. Sorry for being long-winded.
One question, maybe I'm putting you on the spot. Was there something that you were talking about, insurance, more of a payback to is there something you can report on that as well?
So last night we had a MACO meeting, conference call, and it's kind of to set the agenda of the priorities, and I did get put on our agenda that the Medicaid reimbursement to the ambulance services, to get that put on the agenda for next year, so that MACO will be pushing so that we get higher reimbursement rates for our ambulances. So that's now on the agenda for the MACO meeting. So that was exciting.
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. I, too, attended the Pegasus remote control event. They had good participation out there, and they did a flyover with a missing formation in honor of Dave Ryder. Dave Ryder was a supporter of that organization, and there's some stories floating around out there that he landed his own plane out there on that field on several.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that was a nice event. And I was at the Volvo Power Day event. Of course, Mac Volvo, major employer in our company. I arrived in time to see the Bulldog competition, which was quite entertaining. I think we had a current county employee who had his Bronx, I believe, here at 1 year. So that was a nice event. Had a lot of conversations with a lot of citizens out there. And one of the things that I attended was the D.M. Bowman 60th anniversary. And the comment I'd like to make about it, that the D.M. Bowman Group, from trucking to hospitality to real estate, a major national organization located in Washington County, providing jobs, homes, tax revenue, Christmas, vacation, cars located in Washington County and in my hometown of Williamsport. I couldn't have been more proud there that day to see that celebration and the expansion of that company and continuing on past the 60 years. So congratulations to all the DM Bowman Group for what you do for this local community. And that concludes my report. Now I would like to go into reports from county staff. County, Mr. Holloway, please come forward. Report.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I am Ashley Holloway, Director of the Plan Review and Permitting Division for the county, and I am here to give recognition to my permit technicians. All of my permit technicians are certified, which is the first known ever in county history that all the permit technicians are certified. And this was done voluntarily. Certification is not required with the position, but the three ladies took it upon themselves and took the initiative to further develop their profession by taking on this certification. So I just want to thank you for recognizing them, and I want to recognize them for the great work that they do. They are the first faces you see, not just you, but our customers when they come in and apply for building permits, trade permits, zoning certifications. These are the ladies that they see, and they're wonderful customer service. They work hard. They all have families, but yet they dedicate themselves to the county to make sure that everything is processed efficiently and correctly. So again, thank you for recognizing my permit technicians. We wouldn't have development without them. And I also want to give a huge shout out to their supervisor, Rebecca Gander. She's back at the office taking permits because they're here. So, and she was the driving force to helping them achieve this, for encouraging them to do it. She is herself also certified because she started off at the front desk and then became a permit technician herself, and now she's a chief of permitting. So again, I just want to give a big shout out to Rebecca Gander for her service as well. So thank you, Commissioners.
Please come down here to the flag. Praise you for that. Thank you. I'll let you hold it. Thank you, Ash. I'd like to present this certificate of recognition to Krista, Heather, and Catherine. And I got out of pronouncing that one last name. Didn't think of that. Thank you, Krista Hart. In recognition of receiving a passing score, the International Code Council attests you of satisfactory demonstrated knowledge as required by the International Code Council by successfully completing the prescribed written examination based on the codes and standards then in effect, and has been issued a certification as a permit technician. Congratulations, congratulations, and again, congratulations to you. And we'll pose for a picture, and then we'll invite the commissioner.
Good morning. Zane Rout, Assistant Director, Highway Department. I would like to request the board approve the use of the Maryland State contract pricing for roadway paint striping in the amount of $86,282.83 for painting provided by Alpha Space Control, Inc.
Commissioners, any questions?
Motion to approve.
You have the state contract number on that.
Yes. 492D61421.
Okay, pardon the interruption. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? It's a budget, it's the funds in your budget for
Correct.
this, right?
Yes,
It's
sir.
just, you're presenting it, why?
There's a bid.
The money's in your budget,
Yes.
and you're presenting it for what reason?
Approval
Approval.
to, correct.
Is there a reason why this wasn't made an agenda item so that we could look over all the information?
Apparently for the last 8 to 10 years, we have been utilizing the state contract, but we haven't been in line with purchasing policies. So this work has been performed already. It's complete. So sort of the cart before the horse, if you will. So we're evaluating our procedures to align with purchasing policies.
What was purchasing's policy?
$50,000 threshold.
And are you on a deadline?
I'm sorry?
Are you on a deadline? Is there some urgency to the request that needs to happen now?
Well, we do have the bill. The painting was complete the end of May.
But this amount of money was already approved in the
Correct.
budget for
In the
this project.
yes, in the 19 budget.
Actually, we're double approving it. Is that what
So if we don't approve it, what happens? You gotta go take the paint back out or what?
That might be a daunting task,
line.
but
I'll second it.
All right, a first and a second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
thank you.
It's gonna come by, we're gonna go by the procedure going forward, is what it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
And there, have been invoices that were under the threshold and a few that were over.
Okay.
But in the past, like I say, we've been getting the painting done and then getting the billing. So we need to evaluate how we're applying our procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Any other staff comments?
Good morning, Commissioner. Susan Small, Director of Business Development. I'm here this morning to introduce you to our business leader, Jonathan Horowitz, who started yesterday with our department. We're very excited to have Jonathan on board. He brings a great deal of experience with business outreach, business strategy, and I'm looking forward to having him on our team to help us grow economic development and tax base in Washington County. So just wanted to introduce you to him, and please feel free to stop over and visit us anytime.
Mr. Horowitz, having a few words. Welcome first.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really excited about the opportunity to serve the county. I've lived here most of my entire life, and just really looking for the proper place to apply my education and experience in business. Luckily, I was lucky enough to experience some pretty high-level things in the Baltimore area, and I'm looking forward to bringing some of those people to the county to increase the tax base.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments or questions for?
Oh, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Susan. Hey. Any other comments from staff?
Good morning. I'm Brittany Higgins, taking Danielle's stand-in place for now. She's at the hospital, so the baby's coming soon, so that's exciting news. But I'm here to recognize and introduce High Rock Studios, who they're going to come forward. They have an exciting announcement to share with the county and with the commissioners.
Hey, everybody, come forward. There's a chair for everybody.
Okay, we're gonna, come on. Yeah, that'll work. Get us all in here. All right, hello, thank you. We are here because, here, you want to stuff that up here? Yeah. We are here because on Saturday, High Rock was awarded a regional Emmy Award for our video titled Hagerstown Unite, which is a promotional video on behalf of the city and the county. We've been working on this for about a year and a half. Just a quick update on the Emmys. The Emmys are the same Emmys that you know from TV, however, they're the regional version. So we are in the Capital Chesapeake Bay region, and the videos are judged from people all across the country. So there are probably people in California, New York, Texas, Chicago, bigger places that are judging these videos that got a chance to see the video all about Hagerstown. About a year and a half ago, we are here because we want to thank you for the support of this project. A bunch of civic leaders came to us and said, hey, High Rock, we need a rallying cry for this city, for this county, because we are doing a whole lot of work downtown and we need everybody to show their support. There's a lot of naysayers whenever we do something really true and new and exciting, so we need to get everybody down here to support these projects. So we're excited to say that we turned around and there are many, many supporters on this project. We had partners that were brainstorming partners, we had sponsors, we had people like Spencer Jackson that performed and wrote the poetry in the video, we had custom music that was created, and then many, many business owners and nonprofit leaders that were actually featured in the video. So we are very, very proud to present this Emmy to the commissioners and to the county and to say that we are proud to be from Hagerstown. So thanks.
Introduce you. I want to know who everybody is. I know Peter down there. Peter down on the end there.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm Katie Stover. I'm vice president.
I'm Josh Youngbar. I'm the director.
I'm Spencer Jackson. I'm a local artist and a proud friend of High Rock Studios.
I'm Roland Bingaman. I'm the lead cinematographer at High Rock.
And he composed the music.
Yes.
And the composer.
Yes.
And I'm Peter Bickford on the marketing team at High Rock.
Good. Well, congratulations. That's a round of applause.
Thanks very much.
I understand we're going to have a presentation of the video now. Is
Yes,
that
we are.
coming up?
Yeah, Brittany got that all
Okay,
ready
I
for
think
us.
they're in the back working on that.
All right. And you know, it's very fun to take a picture with it if you've never gotten to hold an Emmy. It's very heavy. Yeah, it's really exciting.
To know your footing is to know where you're headed. Ours proudly planted on a foundation that set the world into motion, from locomotion to aviation. We manufacture, and man, if you factor in that we give $1 back to our very own, that's right, we own it. And what's a journey without a few scars? Sure, we have ours, but matching jerseys don't make you a team, matching bruises do. So if one of us falls, then two will be there to raise them up. We're not afraid to face our true reflection in the water. And when those waters become troubled, together we'll build a bridge over it that leads to the Hagerstown we know we can be. Oh, you don't believe? Don't you know your criticism is like a piece of coal? You think it'll leave marks on us, but you forget the railroad is all we know. This is Hub City, we throw your coal in the fire and away we go. We don't need your esteem, we make our own steam. Our eyes are wide open, a vision isn't a dream. We've had 2020 before 2020. Blueprints of yesterday. The ground has been broken and downtown there's a movement. Fate's not writing our story, we've got the pen, we own it. We teach our next generation to be leaders of innovation. We have a standing ovation for creative culture, where community is communicated through the canvas. We're both hand in hand and arms wide open. Mind, body, and a spirit of let's hear for Hagerstown. So from here on, words are obsolete. If you're all in, then there shouldn't be a seat beneath you. Get up like this is your past, like this is your future. Move like this is your life, like this is your heart. Believe like Hagerstown is your home, because you can't spell town without own. Own it.
Good deal.
Again, any last words or congratulations from all of us?
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to do a picture up front here. I forgot. So. That's it. Great. Any other Emmy winners in the audience? Any other accolades for Washington County? Any other county employee, staff comments? Anybody else? Rob, Sarah, Krista?
I do. I have an update for the board. Yesterday, the Washington County School Security Task Force meeting was held, and that you may recall those started approximately last year. And while the county does have a general active assailant policy in place, this task force will be working to assemble a incident action plan for a prototype school to begin, and then that prototype will be carried out for each individual school, because obviously each school has its own characteristics for security that must be considered. So good news is that an action plan will be carried out. And secondly, that we're down to, with the Board of Education, 3 schools that do not have hardened lobbies. Last year, I believe that number was 7. So by August of 2020, that number should be approximately 0. So that is a plan in place, and the committee continues to meet, the task force, I'm sorry, continues to meet quarterly. And I believe for this incident action plan, there would be more regular meetings. Dave Hayes is here, our emergency services director, and he is one of the participants in those meetings. So we will continue to keep you updated with progress.
All right. Thank you. Any other staff? Krista?
We have the Washington County Agricultural Reconciliation Board wishing to appoint Mr. Ed Hayes to serve his first full 5-year term on their board through June 30th, 2024.
Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Hayes? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Krista, anything else?
Yes, sir. Additionally, the Washington County Board of Zoning Appeals, they are wishing to reappoint Ms. Tracy Felker to serve a first full 3-year term through June 30th of 2022 as an alternate member on this board. And this is a paid board through Washington County.
Motion to approve. There's a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0. Any other staff? Going once, going. Next, contract award, PUR 1425, stop and loss insurance coverage. Rick Curry. Good morning, Mr. Curry.
Morning, Commissioners.
We'll go back. I forgot it. We'll go back.
Do you want to?
Well, hey, are you,
For citizens' participation.
that's the Zane and,
Zane and Andrew.
Okay, no, there's somebody in front of them, that's why I didn't know.
oh,
Well, do you know if the person in front of you was for citizen participation? Okay.
okay. I made a mistake. I skipped over citizens' participation, but you guys finish and we'll go back to allow people to arrive. Thank you for the notification. Thank you. Please continue, Mr. Curry.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing. Let me introduce everyone. Deb Condo, HR. Steve Dillman, CBiz. Liz, also with CBiz. Subject before you is contract PUR 1425, stop loss insurance coverage. The motion is to award a contract for stop loss insurance to the responsible proposer, Sun Life Financial, as Wesley Hills, Massachusetts, who submitted the lowest price with no special terms for high claims of a total premium of $1,039,716 with specific stop loss of $175,000 per claimant. The RFP was advertised as we normally do in the various websites and the various newspaper. You can also see the impact for this year's budget. We have a recommendation of the Deputy Director of Health. We also have the SLEBIZ has put together a summary that they will address. Are there any questions as to what I've presented to the board so far? Steve, I'll turn it over to you then, sir.
Okay, so We were here several weeks ago that we had gone through a process of bidding all of the health and pharmacy coverages, and Aetna retained it at that time, and as of July 1 of 19, and CVS Caremark is the pharmacy vendor as of 7/1/19. Typically, separately from that, we will also bid the stop loss, which is essentially reinsurance on top of, for large claimants, any claim over $175,000. The results last year, there was significant claim activity, quite a few large claimants that drove costs higher. So typically, we would see an increase in the 15 to 20% range in stop loss. This year, it's actually at 27%. So it's a little higher than normal, but it has been competitively bid. And as you can see on the last page of what we put together, there were several other bidders, but they were all significantly, some cases significantly higher. And Sun Life, who is the incumbent vendor today, the recommendation is to remain with Sun Life for next year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Again, we'll return to citizens' participation. If I miss someone, please accept my apology. Is there anyone in the audience for citizens' participation? And I believe we verified that was Doug Levine. Thank you, Dad. I appreciate that. Mr. Early, thank you very much for, please state your name all for the record there, sir.
Morning, Commissioners, County staff. James Ulrich, Byron Drive, Smithsburg, Maryland, Whitesburg Hills. I recently should have received a letter regarding an ongoing dispute with the Williamsport Fire and EMS regarding the county government's EMS staffing agreement. The EMS staffing agreement, which is still in effect, was implemented in 2010 to provide critical additional funding to the 8 EMS companies, several of which were experiencing an unacceptable number of delayed and failed responses to emergency calls. That funding provided the companies with the money needed to hire dedicated full-time employees to respond to EMS calls, significantly improving an ambulance reaching the citizens and visitors of Washington County in a timely manner. Part of the agreement included an agreed-upon minimum wages for EMS workers, as well as a standard benefit package to be implemented by the 8 EMS companies, which include a 7% base annual contribution into each full-time employee's retirement account. This dispute stems from Williamsport receiving over $100,000 in taxpayer money each year to provide their full-time employees with wages and benefits commensurate with the other 7 EMS companies in Washington County. As outlined in the letter, we are requesting an investigation and determination be made regarding Williamsport's receipt of and use of taxpayer money in accordance with the EMS staffing agreement dated July 1st, 2010. Please be certain we've done our due diligence prior to bringing this issue before you. I attempted to resolve this issue with Williamsport, but I was ignored. I then found out that every other current and former employee may have been impacted as well. Unable to get resolution for myself, I sought legal representation in an attempt to recoup the money owed to my retirement account that Williamsport received but was doing something else with. Williamsport then ignored 3 letters, forcing us to take this issue to circuit court. A judge ruled that since the agreement was signed by county government and by Williamsport, I was not the right person to bring this issue to the court. But the court did not clear Williamsport of any wrongdoing. What Williamsport has done and continues to do is wrong. For nearly a decade, Williamsport has used some taxpayer dollars for purposes other than providing the required retirement contributions for its employees. All of you say you are stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and all of you are rightfully hesitant to raise taxes. I trust that all of you would like to know where that money went. My former coworkers and the taxpayers deserve an answer as well. Section 2.7 of the EMS staffing agreement states that the company will provide compensation and benefits for the persons staffing the transport units at a level and on a scale commensurate with the compensation and benefit levels maintained by the other 7 companies throughout the county. The company's compensation and benefit structure will be within the guidelines promulgated or established by the EMS operational program. The EMS operational program will review annually the company's compliance with this section 2.7. I have the voting records and the meeting minutes to show that Williamsport's chief at the time was the same individual That was part of the unanimous vote to implement the defined wage and benefit package. I also received a copy of Williamsport's signed EMS staffing agreement from county government. The chief was also the same individual who signed the agreement. County government also provided a copy of the compensation and benefit structure that was established by the EMS operational program, which includes the retirement contributions that I'm referencing. The EMS operational program consists of 3 individuals: the Director of Emergency Services, the Medical Director, and the President of the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. 2 of the 3 are county employees. The combined authority of these 3 individuals is the county's EMS operational program. As stated, the EMS operational program was to be reviewing annually each company's compliance with Section 2.7. It is unclear if that ever happened or not. Again, we are requesting an investigation and determination be made regarding Williamsport's use of taxpayer money in accordance with the EMS staffing agreement dated July 1st, 2010. My attorney advised that Mr. Downey had reviewed what Williamsport did. Mr. Downey claimed that Williamsport provided better hours and wages in place of the 7% contribution into each employee's retirement account. I can assure you from working there full-time for 18 months that Williamsport's hours were not better in lieu of the 7% retirement contribution. Williamsport still uses a 24 on, 48 off schedule compared to the more desirable 24 on, 72 off schedule. As far as better wages, Williamsport offered me only $1.36 more per hour, more than the minimum agreed wage for a paramedic when I was hired, despite 16 years total in county fire and EMS, 6 of which were at the advanced life support level. Our wages were later increased to help combat Williamsport's constantly high turnover. But what about the 7 years of agreement prior to when I was hired? A number of Williamsport paramedics, actual lifesavers with thousands of hours of classroom time, clinical training, and emergency responses, were making less per hour than a wait clerk at the landfill. They also weren't getting the 7% of their wages into their retirement accounts. If a corporation doing business in Washington County and receiving taxpayer money or tax breaks under the current terms of a county authorized loan or other agreement failed to follow said agreement, the commissioners and your staff would act upon that in a heartbeat. After all, your constituents are sometimes helping to front the money for these businesses and projects. I sincerely hope that you all act upon that without needing someone to come to citizens' participation, just to encourage you to do the right thing. How is this issue any different? 8 EMS companies doing business in the county receive over $2 million each year of taxpayer money under the terms of an agreement. 8 companies have received over $17 million under the EMS staffing agreement. One of those companies has been misusing taxpayer funds and is failing to follow a signed agreement. An agreement created by the county attorney and signed by the president of the county commissioners and the chief of Williamsport. You can't pick and choose what to enforce. We've all seen through recent events what can happen when a fire or EMS company's finances are not properly managed. Our county's fire and EMS companies are heavily funded by taxpayer dollars and by taxpayer donations as well. It is imperative that the county government stand behind its own agreement with the 8 EMS companies. If you don't back your own agreement, not only is it a slap in the face to all of these EMS workers who did not receive their full retirement funds, but it also sets the precedent that you allow the 8 EMS companies to spend $2 million each year on whatever they want, instead of wages and benefits. I see a recipe for disaster. You have 8 EMS companies running on shoestring budgets. The companies can only do so much fundraising and only bring in so many donations. If the county agreement doesn't have to be followed, but the companies still get the taxpayers' money, things will get ugly. The employees and ultimately the citizens and visitors of Washington County who need an ambulance when they call 911 will be the ones to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens to comment? Seeing none, contract award, PUR 1429.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Subject before you is contract PUR 1429, Accounting Review Services. We're asking that the accounting review services be recommended awarded to the responsible firm of Smith Elliott Kearns LLC of Hagerstown, Maryland, with the lowest 5-year proposal value of $446,400 and professional fees for each supplemental service if required, as listed in the RF. Also in your packet, you have a excerpt of the scope of work from the RFP. The RFP was advertised we normally do on the various websites, also in the local newspaper. You can see the number of individuals who downloaded the document. It also gives information as to who all served on the committee. This is a 1-year contract that's beginning July 1st, ending June 30th, 2020, with 4 one-year periods thereafter based on the annual lump sum fees proposed by Smith Elliott and Kearns. You can see the fiscal impact of the budget and the recommendations concurrence with the coordinated committee. Also, you have the fee attachment in the scope of work for the services.
Yeah, I have a question. It says it's 446.4, and it says so we can. It says escalate up to, if we use a staff member 50 hours. Is that 50 times 125 on top of that?
No, the additional cost would be for any supplemental services that we would require. So everything that we have procured should be covered under the lump sum amount.
So they just, it was reading, that they could come in and bill us for staff.
No.
That could be a request.
And it's, how long does it take to do this review? How many years? 1 year to do it all?
This accounting and review services is an annual process and procedure, so they will be accounting for the disbursements for the fire and EMS companies, and it will be on a reimbursement basis. So the fire and EMS companies will submit paid invoices and information related to those payments to the firm, and then they will provide the accounting for that, give information to the county for the county to reimburse the companies. So this will be an annual process.
I want to be careful to distinguish between accounting and auditing. This is very much for accounting, meaning, as Sarah said, a recurring activity that submit for reimbursement, get reimbursed on a quarterly basis. There are FAQ, we are getting questions from various companies. We are formulating, in fact, we've already started on it, a summary of FAQs, frequently asked questions, the policy as well for all the companies that has long been in place. So that will help to execute this, this document that's being contemplated by the commissioners.
One of the things I have here, I don't know if I got everybody a copy. I gave copies to Kurt. It looks like in October 2013, we have an emergencies fiscal policy that it's already in place. So this will coincide with the reporting mechanisms and accountability that's with that policy, correct?
That's absolutely right, President Klein. I want to be careful to state this is not new or different in the way that we're doing business. It's simply that there will be an accounting firm that these requests will be reported to for reimbursement. So it was estimated, and I need to give a compliment to Ms. Greaves, who estimated the cost for these would be these services would be approximately $100,000. It turns out the middle estimate is exactly what she had estimated. It's very close to what she had estimated. So with a little bit of background, the commissioners asked for some accounting services to be provided. Again, separate from that, for Smithsburg, for instance, auditing will be done at the commissioner's request. That auditing process will be procured by the town, by Smithsburg EMS, and funded by the loan that's been provided. So auditing and accounting, two separate things.
Eliminated if deemed necessary.
That's absolutely right. So there may be auditing. The gentleman just spoke. That's one issue that the commissioners, we may want to look at that for auditing as well. There's a number of things that with the policy in place, I can't underline that enough, the policy has been in place. This is a matter of formally executing the policy that's been in place for quite some time.
Give me a quick rundown, Sarah, on what exactly, and 100 words or less. Start to finish, what do we get out of this?
Well, the benefit of this is that prior to this point in time, the county has given a distribution to the fire and EMS companies without any documentation to support where the funds are being used. So the benefit to this is that the accounting services that will be provided will make sure that we know exactly how much they have in utilities cost, how much they have in fuel costs, maintenance cost. The fiscal policy that was just referenced guides the companies on what an eligible use of funds is, and so how can they appropriately use county dollars. This will be the other side of that to make sure that that is happening and that they are using those funds appropriately. So I think in a summary form, that's basically what we're doing. Before, we were giving a disbursement. There was not a lot of accountability. Now we're asking for a reimbursement basis for invoices and costs incurred. So, and we are asking for that quarterly. Before it was quarterly disbursements. Now we're asking for quarterly reimbursement requests to distribute the funds.
And Smith, Elliott, Kearns gets this information, they digest it, report back to the county.
Yes, they will get the information directly from the companies. The companies will work with them. The companies will submit information
What
to
if that
them.
information doesn't get to them? That's what worries me a little bit. What if they don't cooperate with the
If
review?
the companies don't cooperate,
Yeah.
if the companies don't submit information to the firm, then they will not
I'm
receive.
not saying they're not. I'm just curious how this whole thing works.
They will not receive any form of allocation.
So that's the incentive.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. Sarah, maybe the first one for you, the others, whoever could answer them. So $90,000 a year, would it be just as beneficial, maybe more beneficial, if this was a new position in-house? Would it be beneficial to your department in any way if this was a county employee who did the audit rather than having the outside accounting agency? Would we have maybe a better contact with them? Less fees? Would they be more accessible to our county fire departments, Dave Hayes, if it was someone within county government helping with this review?
There are pros and cons to both, whether it was in-house or whether it was a third party. This was chosen the route that we chose was to go third party based on.
You have 31 different companies that are going to be approaching, and if you intend to follow the policy, the recommendation by staff is that you have this independent professional follow that policy. The commissioners can certainly go a different direction.
Well, this is not a one-person
advertisement.
job, and it won't, if this is awarded, that firm be using a multi-layer of people to assist? And if we had one person for you, wouldn't that work be assigned over your entire staff?
This work may be performed by multiple people in Smith, Elliott, and Kearns. I have not given this a lot of thought because we were going a direction of a third party. So if this came in-house, it could be handled with one position. I do feel like it could be. However, that's not.
If I could add some,
Sure.
Sorry, if I could add something to that, the workload is not necessarily going to be consistent to where one person may be able to handle that systematically over 12 months. There are going to be times, specifically a budget, where Sarah's office is challenged that some of these reports are going to come in a heavier volume than they might, whereas a third-party firm has a surge capacity to do that. Sarah has the entire county budget as well. That was one of the conversations that her and I had is this best served in there or not? The other thing, and I'll just give it to you from my particular position, is having a third-party agency involved in this creates, I think, a buffer in there to where there can be maybe a thought that the county is not being fair. The county can certainly be the reviewer or the appeal step for a company, but I believe the third-party review in there puts a little buffer in there that helps kind of manage relationships across 31 different agencies. So
That's a good point. To that point, ties in well with my other question. Is there a way we can make sure these audits are important, but each company is unique it's not a cookie cutter mold for each company. They have different needs for different equipment, and so on. Who's going to be the final arbitrator as to whether or not something should be done a different way? Does the companies have some latitude? Do the commissioners? Will it go back to the association?
Just to clear up and come back to one of the county administrator's comments, this isn't necessarily a true audit where we're looking at their accounting principles. We're making sure that the expenditure of county funds is applicable to the document that President Klein just showed, that if computers are an allowable expense, that if that's what the expense was, it was a computer. If you wanted to spend money on, I'm trying to think of something ridiculous.
Fuel, utilities.
Yeah, fuel, maintenance, facility repair, that $48,000 general allocation, that's where that money was spent, that it wasn't spent maybe to buy a lawnmower for somebody's house. And that is a crazy misrepresentation of where I believe money is being spent, but I'm trying to make sure there's a clear distinction of my point.
No, that's good. That makes sense. One more question, if I could. So the review is only of the monies the county is allocating towards each company, but more than likely the monies are mixed in from fundraisers and other sources of revenue for the company, and probably into a general fund account. And if we're only auditing part of those monies, the part that, and I said audit, if we're only reviewing those monies that we're contributing, are we really getting the big picture? Are we getting a good understanding? Would it be appropriate to review something larger than just our portion of the contribution?
And if I may, this is where I want to distinguish again between an audit and accounting. This is per the policy that President Klein provided. Per the policy, this is a reimbursable expense. The answer is yes or no. There might be some ambiguity in the policy, but it's pretty clear. So it's submitted, yes, you would get a reimbursement for that fee. This really has nothing to do with selling hamburgers or hot dogs or what funds were generated from that, because the county doesn't control those funds. If one were to go into an audit situation, then that would be subject quite likely to all funds. Completely different for different reasons.
And doesn't this policy address a lot of those things? I haven't been able to get it to everybody, but just enforce this policy, and I think
It does.
it's okay with a lot.
It does. The issue that we've had is that there's been no execution of the policy. The policy has been in place. It's a reasonably good policy. It's a fairly tolerant policy, in my opinion. It's the intention of the board at the time. I think it's the intention of the board today of what can be reimbursed. I don't think there's a great deal of qualm with that. It's simply seeing the taxpayer dollars in the amount of about $5.2 million per year. There's some record of those being spent appropriately.
I got a little thought on this. I'm not, I know we're using the word review. I'm not too scared of using the word audit either. We just raised taxes, and tell me how this falls in, Sarah. We just raised taxes to shore up again fire and rescue. And we just, we give money to fire and rescue. And I think all of us sat up here and say, we want to know where all the money's going. And I'm not saying hamburger, hot dog money, but if I'm using citizens' money, we'll use Smithburg's as an example. By golly, we just loaned them $100,000 now. We were smart enough to cover our $100,000 pretty well for the citizens' money, the taxpayers' money. So I'm not scared to dig a little deeper if we have to. I'm the guy that raised taxes. I'm the guy to get all the emails and the phone calls. So, I want to make sure that money's spent responsibly. And then this policy does that. I haven't read it. But I'm just making myself clear on that. I'm the guy that, at the end of the day, is getting beat up.
This new procedure will do that for you. So I think that's the good news. We require accountability for all of our departments when they spend money, and we should require the same for these allocations.
I think that's allocations. Are you referring to the amount of money that we provide to the companies currently?
That's correct.
That goes back to what the citizen was just referencing in citizens' participation?
That's correct.
If I remember correctly, I thought that was all supposed to be handled in-house. The staff was your department, which you weren't in charge of at that time, that they were going to be overseeing all of that money and
And-
making sure that it was spent appropriately.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but the way I understand it is that the information for what they've spent on their fuel, utilities, maintenance, all goes to the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, and they are the primary.
Yeah, they've been the custodian of the documents relative to fuel maintenance and utilities. And, you know, one of the things, Commissioner, is they're no different than the other volunteer organizations. And the president's back here, so I say this openly. It's not something that is meant to be a targeted statement. But 15 years ago, I couldn't have counted on a couple of our hands all of the people that supported the association administratively in a weekly or certainly in a monthly capacity. But I think I can count probably on one hand today the number of people that are contributing significantly to the administration of the association's work. And that's not a slam. That's trying to recognize where they're trying to still be good stewards of programs and things and such. This creates, again, that third-party review and buffer going forward with that. Now, if you come back to the conversation of the citizen earlier, that is something that's been a conversation for years as to how that was supposed to be. Are they required to expend all of those dollars, dollar for dollar, in salaries and benefits, or if they could save part of that with volunteer labor, could they use that money elsewhere? And having been one of the authors of the original document, one of the original theories was that yes, you could. But if you employed staff, here were some of the expectation, but it was never given in an absolute, here's the hammer, let's slam it on the table, and that's how it goes.
Terry, any other questions?
I guess now, after having some discussion, I guess I'm just trying to comprehend. We're going to spend almost $500,000 to make sure that the money that we're providing is spent correctly. So I guess that's what I'm trying to.
The estimates, when the advertisement for this went out, the estimate was approximately $100,000 per year. I believe the lowest bid is in fact 88,
I think.
$88,000 per year. So the 500 that you see, it's for a term of 5 years. Yeah. So spending 5.2, which if you multiply that by 5 is about $27 million. So to spend $27 million appropriately, that $500,000, one could look at it as that's the insurance that it's spent appropriately. It's certainly at the discretion of the board. I believe that it's definitely a practical and pragmatic approach to see that the policy that the board has in place is executed appropriately. Without it, that's a lot of taxpayer dollars, and that's subject to how you'd choose to have staff proceed.
I think, you know, with hiring 29 firefighters, giving money, I think we have to. I don't think we have a choice. In my opinion, just my opinion, I'm all for. I definitely don't want it in-house. I don't even want to think about it being in-house for the points Dave Hayes there brought up. I think it has to be, you know, arm's length, third party. That's just where I'd be good with it. I don't know if it's thorough enough for me, but we'll see how it goes.
We can always reserve the option of an audit if we think there's.
Well, and I think we can look at it as this can be a building block as well.
I think we're doing this more than, we're not trying to find theft or fault. We're just trying to make sure that we're finding ways to best utilize and maximize the money. And these reviews will show better management practices and things like that to help get more money for the taxpayers. Bang for emergency.
I don't want to steal the administrator's thunder for a little later on in the presentation, but one of the strategic imperatives you're going to see that we work through in our work group was how do we find intuitive ways to support the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association and strengthen it. One of these, and I think this is one of those cases where we can take this burden off of them and let them get back to looking at true volunteer and recruitment and retention issues. And I know it's, you know, Commissioner Baker, it's a big price tag, but I think it's a worthy cause.
Well, I agree, it's a large sum of money, but I also want, I think in the last couple years, we've seen misuse of money and allocation multiple different times. And if we could spend this money to make sure it's being used properly, and I'll say a lot of it was probably mistakes, but, you know, I think this is something that we need to make sure and take care of the taxpayer dollar. So.
I support this. I do support the review, the audit. I agree with Commissioner Wagner. I'm just, it could go a little further for me. Again, it's not that we're accusing anyone or you saying that that's happening, but if, again, at the end of the day, our contribution, the county's contribution, and I think Mr. Orwick said taxpayer donations, that's a good terminology for it. If they're all being used, we're not getting an accurate picture by this review. I understand it just reviews the county's contribution, but we might be able to help some other companies out if we can see how maybe one company is a bit more efficient in one regard than the next company. There could be a benefit of doing a broader scope, but I do support what's presented to us.
Commissioner Kiefer, that's an excellent springboard into the overall what is going on in emergency service review, and that this accounting is a foundation, a reimbursement. The audit that we're doing with Smithsburg EMS is very much a how can we raise revenue, reduce cost. That is an audit, and we intend to fully take the results, our findings from that, and say, can this be applied elsewhere? Can we work with other companies to make this work? So very much what I think we're hearing from the commissioners is the intention. This is the foundation with accounting. Additional auditing can be done and will be done where it's necessary and is prudent financially.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve.
First and a second, any discussion? All I would say is I would also not eliminate the possibility of an audit being done based on some comments I heard.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to, I'll get this pamphlet distributed, but it also says in here about there is a review process. There is possibility of an audit already written in the fiscal policy, so I think we're covered. So any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've handled it.
Okay. 2019 housing bond allocation transfer. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Obviously, I'm not Stephen Goodrich, so he apologizes he had a medical issue today he had to take care of. I am Jill Baker. I am the Deputy Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning, and I'm here to talk to you today about the 2019 housing bond allocation, 2018 housing bond allocation, in the amount of $5,347,125. Every year, the county receives a bond allocation, housing bond allocation from the state of Maryland to invest in housing, loans, and rental fees to help citizens in home ownership. So what we do every year is we reallocate that money, or we transfer that money back to the state of Maryland for them to use as part of the Maryland Mortgage Program. The Maryland Mortgage Program provides 30-year fixed-rate home loans that are eligible to home buyers with competitive loan terms. What makes this program so unique is the range of associated financial incentives that can come along with this. That includes things such as down payment and closing cost assistance, federal tax credits, partner match programs, and home buyer education programs. This year, the bond allocation amount decreased slightly to, as I said, $5,347,125. That's about a $145,000 decrease from last year. Again, these funds will be strictly used in Washington County to assist homeownership here in Washington County. So what we are asking here today from the county commissioners is to approve that transfer of that funding to the state of Maryland in support of the Maryland Mortgage Program. Be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. I vote, thank you.
Thank you,
Jim.
Commissioners.
Bid awards, ground maintenance.
Good morning. Brandy Nagel, a buyer in a purchasing office, and I have John Easterday from Black Rock Golf Course with me. The recommendation before you today is for the contract award PUR 1426 for grounds maintenance chemicals for various county departments. The recommendation is to move forward with the award to the responsive companies that had the lowest bid and met the specs for each chemical as indicated on the bid tab. There was a tie bid for 3 of the chemicals, which require a drawing of lots in the public pursuant to the purchasing policy 2.9. The county accepted bids on May 1st, 2019, and the bid was advertised in the local newspaper, the eMaryland Marketplace website, and the county website. 7 companies downloaded the document. We did receive 3 bids. This contract is a one-year, has a one-year period. It begins July 1st, 2019, ending June 30th, 2020. And with that, I'd like to come forward and have the lots for the tie chemicals drawn by some volunteers, please.
We don't win anything, we're just drawing a lot, huh?
I didn't volunteer.
So for the first chemical, it's item number 28, and it is dismissed, and I'm putting a ticket in here for Genesis Turfgrass, Site 1 Landscape, and Helena Chemicals. So for item number 28, the dismiss, goes to Site 1 Landscape.
I didn't volunteer.
I know. I guess I should list it on the volunteer. The next item is item number 31, the signature, and I put in a Site 1, Genesis, and Helena Chemical.
Don't be scared.
She also put a thumbtack in it too.
And item number 31 is for Site 1 Landscape.
Or do it.
Again, Site 1 Chemical, Site 1 Landscape, Helena, and Genesis. And this is item number 32 for the barricade. Item number 32 went to Genesis Turfgrass.
I'll volunteer.
You'll volunteer.
Oh.
Thank you guys, man. Like so much.
I know, said this.
It's so much fun. Exactly. You jealous now? We got to pick Terry. You jealous?
Oh, yeah.
And with that, I ask for approval for the chemicals on the bid tab as well as the drawing chemicals.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
First and a second, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up, proposed pile agreement for Hostetter Solar One. Mr. Wilkinson, welcome.
Good morning.
This is it.
Morning, Commissioners. Andrew Wilkinson, 19638 Leitersburg Pike, Suite 200, Hagerstown, Maryland. Here with Jack Kopus and Laura York concerning
request for a pilot for a solar project out on the Leitersburg Pike. In December of this year, December of last year, 2018, the Board of Zoning Administrators, Board of Zoning Appeals, approved a 2-megawatt solar farm off of Leitersburg Pike. Similarly, near Tucker Road. It sits on land owned by a farmer named David Hostetter. What I've just provided to you is an overhead shot to the top of the page. The blue box is generally the location of where the solar farm will be. On the second page is a general site plan of the solar farm. Mr. Hostetter owns 2 parcels. The one to the top of the page is about 60 acres. The one below is about 125 acres. So he has 185 acres of farmland there and proposing to use 15 acres of it. The request for special exception at the Board of Zoning Appeals was approved 5-0. There were 3 neighbors who attended that testified, but they were not in opposition of the project. They all indicated they didn't mind the project because they can already see the back of Antietam tractor from their homes anyways, and so that the solar farm would not create any adverse effect to them. They were only concerned about harm to birds, what kind of herbicide would be used on the ground. As you know, from me being here previously with another client, the Maryland Renewable Portfolio Standard, which is what sets how much energy in Maryland must come from renewable resources, has recently been increased. The old law was that by 2020, next year, we'd have 25% of our power coming from renewable energy, 2.5% of it from solar. That's been increased now by 2020, 28% renewable, 6% from solar, and by 2030, 50% renewable, and 14.5% by solar. That's a large jump. And I believe the governor may be considering even increased standards from that. The Maryland Code allows a county to enter into a pilot agreement by which the owner of the facility, which is generating the electricity, pays a negotiated payment as opposed to paying personal property taxes on the equipment. And the reason that the code allows that is because the initial capital investment of a solar farm is pretty expensive. You have to pay for all of the equipment, you have to put it into the ground, and you get taxed on all of it at 50% of its value. And we expect that this project is going to have just north of $3 million worth of capital investment. I expect in your agenda you have the Excel spreadsheet. If you don't, I can get it to you. Okay. This is a similar Excel sheet as to what we have looked at before, going out year 1 through 30, showing you the equipment value, the depreciation rate, taxable value, and then what we are proposing to pay in the pilot. Towards the bottom left-hand side, you'll see summaries. If you did it for 25 years, if you did it for 30 years, if you did it for 40 years. The baseline is what you would pay at full personal property tax rate. The pilot is what it would be if the commissioners agreed to $6,500 per megawatt per year. I'll remind the commissioners something that we discussed last time, and that is right now on this land, agricultural, 15 acres of land is producing $71 per tax per year. That's $2,130 over the next 30 years. We are requesting your assistance to incentivize this project by granting a pilot at the numbers that we are requesting, $6,500 per megawatt per year for 30 years. That would be $390,000 taxes paid to this county over the next 30 years. You'll note on the Excel spreadsheet, the middle summary, the 30 years, that the baseline is $571,000. That's what the county would get if it applied the full tax rate. And so while I recognize that what I'm asking for is a tax incentive of $180,000, by giving that tax incentive of $180,000, you're gaining $390,000. And the reality is that solar doesn't cost the county government anything. It's found money in a way. You're not losing money you're gaining money in tax revenue. The last time I was here with you, I told you that I had a number of projects to come before you. This is the next set. I still have out there right now 25 more megawatts that's been approved, with a possibility of another 15 to 20 on its way one day. So there is tax revenue that wants to come to Washington County. They want to do business here, and so that we request a pilot similar to what you've done before. The last time we were here in April of 2019, 6,500 per megawatt for 25 years. In this request, I'm requesting 6,500 per megawatt for 30 years. And I think if you look at the Excel spreadsheet, you'll see that at the 22nd year is when the tax paid flips. So the longer you go out, the longer you get us paying higher taxes at the pilot than we would pay on the baseline rate. With respect to this project, construction has not started. We expect construction to start mobilizing in October of this year. We expect a 3-month construction schedule, and we expect to be going to final seeding of the property in March or April, springtime of 2020. I've spoken with the client about this board's typical desire to have a decommissioning bond. That is agreeable, and that is no problem. I also spoke to the client about this board's desire that we use local labor, and what we can discuss today is our commitment that in our scope of work, there will be a requirement that bids or that we request bids from Washington County businesses. That's not to say they're going to get all the bid awards, but I can see bids going out to companies like Hetzer, Huntsberry, Valentine Electric, Bradley Electric, Horse Fencing, Saddleview Fence, U.S. Lawns, Groundkeeper here in Washington County. So we are looking for excavation. We are looking for electric. We are looking for fencing. We are looking for landscaping. And I think we're looking for long-term landscaping maintenance as well.
I personally think we have to remain consistent.
Yeah, I think that the 25 years, and you even have it noted on the bottom, does not include new equipment, and that was the big concern of why we went from 40 to 25 years. And I understand that 22 years is the break even, but that's assuming you haven't replaced one panel in 22 years. And from the research that I've done, is the life cycle of a solar panel does not reach 30 years. So I'm assuming, and I'm assuming you're assuming also, that you're going to have to replace a couple of those panels between now and 25 years down the road, and that's where the discrepancy goes. I personally can't go out 30 years.
I would be okay with the proposal with 25.
Commissioners, any other comments?
So, get the names right here. Hostetter Solar is who you two represent, right? Yes. And you're leasing the property from the farmer?
From Mr. Hostetter, yes.
Okay. Has that lease already been, I don't need to know the particulars, has the lease already been agreed to?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner, I think typically in solar leases, the actual lease requirements don't start until the commercial operation date.
To echo the consistency factor, I think I need to be consistent with what I see in solar. I support solar 100%. I think it's good for our environment. It's good. I'm looking at an article here from the Herald Mail from a couple years ago where we led the state of Maryland among all the counties and jurisdictions. I don't know where we rank right now, but we were number 1 in the state of Maryland. So I think we do a really good job here. I look at the last project you brought in, Rockdale Solar, that to me had proven the fact that solar is viable without government subsidies. And I don't see where we give our citizens this kind of a subsidy. So I have a hard time with that, especially on top of increasing taxes. $180,000. So I don't view that as found money. I don't view that as found money for our citizens because the projects are financially viable. otherwise. That would be $180,000 more coming into the county. My opinion, my thought.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but here's my fear. You know, we're gonna recoup, what was it, 390,000? Is that the figure yeah, I'm lost here on my paperwork already.
Over 30 years at 25
Yeah,
years. it'd be
over 25 years, but it would be a different figure. Here's my fear is if we don't, I mean, to me, that's in lieu of nothing for ag tax ground. We're not making anything. The farmer's getting a break. That's what's happening there. And that's what it's for people who buy large tracts of land to get a break. We're not getting anything unless we bring in, whether it be solar farms or anybody's going to utilize this land. I mean, they're just as apt to walk across the state line several miles away, either direction, and we might not get a shot at getting that $300 and some thousand. That's what my fear is, that they won't, if we're unapproachable as a county, we're not business friendly, and they go elsewhere. That's my big concern. So I understand what you're saying, Wayne, but that's just my concern. They won't come here. Now they know we're being consistent on giving them a break, but still making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on this property. I just have to, I'll take the hundreds of thousands of dollars in lieu of a couple hundred for ag tax. So.
Any other comments?
Who's going to be benefiting from the electric that's generated?
So this is a community solar project mandated by the Public Service Commission for the state. So the electricity, I'm with SGC Power. We're the developer. We do the engineering, the project management, the construction management for the project. Laura's with Nautilus, so they're the owner of the system, and they'll be managing the subscriptions from the system to sell the electricity to the local residents in the Potomac Edison service territory, whether that's residential subscribers or small commercial subscribers. They will all have an opportunity to purchase electricity at a discounted rate from the array.
And that's the same project, same type of principle we spoke about last time with the
But you don't know
solar.
specifically who's going to benefit.
For this particular project, 51% will go to low and moderate income subscribers, residential subscribers. The remaining 49% will be standard residential.
And you said there's some state mandate for a certain percent of solar in the near future?
That's correct.
And what percent was that?
The new RPS law for solar is by next year, 6% of the state's energy from solar. 11 years from now, 14.5% from solar.
Have they mandated any of that specifically to Washington County? That's a
no,
state
just
mandate.
state
so that has
mandate.
nothing to do with this discussion.
That's correct.
Just for a point of reference, when this article in the Herald Mail was written, we were 18% of the state's overall solar energy production. We were 18% of the state's.
And I expect we will continue to be, and maybe even greater. And the reason for that, and I'll let the solar experts testify, but my understanding is a couple things you got to have to be able to create solar. Unless you're going to put them on roofs and in parking lots, parking decks. You have to have open land, and the flatter the better. So Washington County is a prime location, but so is the entirety of the Eastern Shore. And so when we talk, if the discussion centers at all around making sure that we get tax dollars here, you are in competition with the Eastern Shore because there's a lot of open land and it's absolutely flat. And that's where companies would actually prefer to be if they had a choice.
I've got two questions. One's to, I guess, follow up on Terry's question with the electricity being used in the area. If we didn't do a pilot program, I guess the first question is, would you guys even consider coming back here? But then the following question would be, if you said yes and the higher increase in taxes, then it's costing you more to produce electricity. So then that would be would you be passing it on and selling it at a higher rate?
We are offering a 10% discount to our standard residential customers and 25% discount to our low and moderate income customers. And in Potomac Edison territory, that's particularly challenging because the rate is roughly 9 cents per kilowatt hour, where in BG&E and Delmarva, you'll see it in more 12 to 13.5, 14 cents. So the revenue stream in Washington County is particularly challenging, which is why we are requesting a pilot for these projects.
Thank you.
Unless you have any other questions, we can certainly amend the request for a purpose of your motion if you wish to make a motion to 20.
I'd motion to approve it at 25 years.
With the decommissioning bond, of course.
First and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
3-2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think you're up next.
We are.
Yeah, welcome back.
Give me a
Up
second to
next.
change files.
Proposed pilot agreement for Pittman Solar One. Andrew, forgive me, would you, for the record, announce your names again, who's doing the presenting? Thank you.
Andrew Wilkinson, attorney in Hagerstown, 19638, Legisburg Pike, Suite 200. Here on behalf of Pittman Solar One, the applicant. With me here is Jack Kopus and Laura York.
Yeah, pardon me? Gosh, we couldn't quite hear it, the microphone.
Yep. My name's Jack Kopus. I'm with SGC Power. We are in Elkridge, Maryland.
Laura York with Nautilus Solar Energy. We're in Summit, New Jersey. York.
Jack Kopus, C-O-P-U-S.
Pittman Solar Project went to the Board of Zoning Appeals in September of 2018 for approval of special exception for a 2-megawatt solar farm on about 11 acres of land located generally at 7900 Millstone Road, Hancock, Maryland. The owner is David and Sina Pittman. What I've provided to you is an overhead shot of the Pittman property. They own 3 parcels. I'm not exactly sure how many total acres it is, but I think it's bigger than the farm that we just looked at. What you see in the blue, sort of along I-70, is the general layout of the farm. On the second page, you'll see a general site plan of what the solar farm is going to look like. The property is near I-70. It is heavily wooded. Between the property line and I-70 are trees, so that it's generally not visible from I-70 or Millstone Road or from any other property or any other road. At the BZA hearing, one neighbor did testify. That neighbor lives a mile away from the project, and he wasn't concerned about the solar farm. He was concerned that it was going to increase the value of all the property around it, including his, and that his property taxes were going to go up. But we assured him that that's not how property taxes work, and so he was okay. The board voted 5-0 to approve the special exception. We've already discussed the renewable energy law in Maryland in our last case. There has been an increase regarding that portfolio standard. We expect almost the same identical project capital outlay for this project as the Hofstadter project that we just discussed, just a little over $3 million. The Maryland Code does allow this county to enter into a pilot agreement. I believe that you have in your agenda packet an Excel spreadsheet. This one is slightly different than the one you looked at before because we're looking at a total equipment outlay of approximately a $40,000 difference. So the numbers do change. You'll note on the left-hand side the summaries if you went 25, 30, or 40 years, recognizing what you want to stay consistent. We understand that you would probably be looking at 25 years. This property, according to the treasurer, produces about $1,500 of taxes over the next 30 years. We are proposing at 30 years to bring $390,000. At 25 years, it would be $325,000. And so we would respectfully request that the commissioners consider a pilot of 6,500 per megawatt per year for 25 years with a decommissioning bond attached.
Just my personal knowledge, how come this is doing the same amount of megawatts with 4 less acres?
It's the way the lay of the land is. It's the terrain, and it's how much internal access roads you need and how much land you need to get from your main road into the site.
Okay.
It is possible that this could increase to 15 acres, but no greater megawatt. So it's an 11-acre site. The BZA approved up to 15 acres, but only for internal access roads.
Okay.
So Drew, you keep throwing out this $6,500 amount
Yes, sir.
per megawatt.
Yes, sir.
How is that price determined?
That price, for me, has been determined historically and based upon my look around the state as to what other counties are doing.
So what's the highest amount you've seen around the state?
About 6,500.
You haven't
Oh,
seen-
no, higher. I've seen significantly higher, but they've not been for solar farms on farmland. They were for solar projects that were attached to hospitals, and so county governments felt they should really give an even greater break.
Well, they're serving people that's coming to the hospital.
Exactly. So in short, I think the $6,500 number works out to about a 30% tax reduction than what the baseline would be. In that hospital example that I found, it was 50 to 60% reduction. But I don't think that's a fair comparison. Where I have found it is based on what this county has done previously. Back in December of 2016, Pinesburg Solar was $6,000 for 40 years. The one out near the prison, I think, was $6,000 for about.
That was never completed in Pinesburg, was it?
No, but the pilot was approved. And I believe the project out at the prison carried about the same amount. I called
One
down
at the prison, I know I'm getting off topic here, but the one at the prison, I was told that the prison doesn't get any of that electricity out there.
I don't know. I don't know who runs that project. I also spoke to a colleague of mine that represents counties on the Eastern Shore. I told him where we were last time, before I came in last time on Rockdale. Where was he seeing the numbers? Was 6,000 or 6,500 in the ballpark? He said, yeah, that's exactly the ballpark, except if you're a hospital, you can get even more.
Okay, any more questions, comments?
Just the same position here, I guess. I'm in full support with the BZA's decision to allow solar. I think it's good for our community. I have no qualms about that. It's the same reason as the last project.
Commissioner Kiefer, let me just say, I understand your concern is giving a company a tax break when the citizens don't get a tax break. I don't know that, I think that's apple and oranges, and here's why. What you're giving is a tax break that is specifically allowed by Maryland law. There's a lot of other tax breaks in our state that are allowed by Maryland law. Homestead tax credit, homeowner tax credit. I bet this county gives every one of those to the citizens. I bet every tax break that the Maryland law allows county government to give citizens, I bet we probably give them all.
Not all of them, but you're right. The state of Maryland is very generous in what they
And I think
allow
we're
us
generous, too.
to give up. I agree with that. It's combined at the same timing, because I've been in favor of solar projects in the past. It's at the same timing as that tax increase that was just proposed. And I know we're afraid that maybe the solar project might go to another county in Maryland or another state, neighboring state. We weren't concerned about the citizens doing the same thing, So that's my qualms. Again, I support solar. I think the BZA made the right decision, but I don't support the pilot.
Any other comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to support their proposal for 25 years.
Make the motion for 25 years to 6,500 with a decommissioning bond.
First, is there a second?
Yeah, I just can't grasp how we don't get 390,000. We have nothing. I second the motion.
I have a first and a second. My basket, we're going to bring in $640,000 over 25 years compared to 4,000. Am I right on that? 2,000 a year.
Generally, the $390,000 is over 30.
30.
If you're reducing to 25 to remain consistent with what we did a month
25.
ago, you're talking $325,000. So
property
yeah, you're
tax, if it was
$650,000 or
$4,000.
Plus the farmer who's struggling gets the lease, correct? And that's just hypothetically.
But just to clarify, since we're still in comment time, Rockdale Solar has proven to us that a pilot is not required in order for this to be financially viable.
But Rockdale might not be here. They might not be here if we didn't do a pilot. That's my fear. I'm back to that again. We're unfriendly, and we just made 600-some thousand, plus we've helped a farmer who has 180 acres and might need a couple extra bucks because he can't get in a land preservation program. Is that
Zoning
correct?
approval, very little, no citizen outcry. Is that what I'm hearing on both projects?
No, on the
Support?
first project, the Hostetter project, 3 of the neighbors came. They all said, I already see Antietam Tractor. You're just putting solar between me and the tractor.
Commissioners, any more comments
And
for
hear
a call for a
nobody.
vote?
I'll have plenty of comments, but I'll just keep them to myself.
All right, hearing no more comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
County Administrator, FY 20 goals, 2019 accomplishments. Thank you, Mr. Slocum. All right, please begin.
Thank you, President Clem, Board of County Commissioners. First, I want to remind everyone, I should have mentioned this in the staff comments, 3:30 today will be the ribbon cutting for the Garrett's Mill Bridge. That is 13 months after the storm event of May 2018 in South County. So a large celebration, public welcome. Please join us. And I believe all the commissioners will be there to celebrate in the opening of that bridge. Again, that's at 3:30 today. To give you some time to think about it before you adjourn your meeting today, and I'll come back to this when I'm done. We've done some quick calculations with the CFO and Budget and Finance assistants. Very rough approximation what it costs in labor per day. This is not the final answer, but to give you an idea of where we came from on this, is approximately $170,000 per day for labor each day the county offices are open. Now, that is not to say giving one day off would cost that amount. There is overtime, however, that will be required for various offices to remain open, and that would be things such as the landfill, such as 911. Airport obviously has flights and must remain open. Permits would be a consideration, whether that remains open or closed. But a quick back-of-the-napkin approach is approximately $20,000 to provide those services for that day, because that is overtime. That's probably a conservative estimate, but I'd rather be conservative with you and rather than not. So the state did also, I believe, and I haven't fact-checked this yet, but I believe I heard announced the state did offer a 3% pay increase beginning July 1. As you know, ours is 2.5%, and it does begin effective in September. So that is another difference. As your county administrator responsible for staff, I would very much like to open your invitation, recommend your invitation for recommending that the staff have Friday off after the 4th of July. That would be fantastic. So I'll leave you with that. Any other questions you may have on that? Maybe after, if I've done my job correctly, after I show you the accomplishments of both the board and the staff, you'll be so enthused that you'll actually support my recommendation.
Are you going to make a recommendation on July 5th?
He just did. Where you been?
I've been listening, but the complications I'm talking about, people have already scheduled vacations. How do you figure that in? Are they credited back a day?
If we did it this far in advance, it would be different, very much different than a snow emergency day, which we can do it this far in advance. That's up to the commissioners.
Well, I would say if the commissioners entertain, if Governor Hogan can do it and we're viable economically to do it for this, I would entertain a commissioner comment or a motion on it now.
I motion we do it.
I have a first. I have a second? First and second, any more discussion? All in favor?
My only question would be, as you talked about permitting office, are we going to close the
To
permitting?
be determined, I
Well,
guess.
I
I
think
think-
that's what I'd recommend closing it, because if we're giving everybody a day off, why not give them the day off too?
Okay.
So then those employees, 911 call takers, work around the clock every holiday.
They have-
Would they have a floating holiday? Is that
We,
what
will-
we would do?
we will compensate them, yes.
Or there's a policy about for
Yes,
compensating
there
that
is.
time, correct?
Yes, there is. And we will do that.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
5-0. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Slocum.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So with that, that's a wonderful segue into what I'd like to start with, if you don't mind, is the board goals for 2020. Those are probably the third page on your presentation packet. I'd like to start there at the top level and move downward. And I will just highlight what's been changed since the last presentation to the board. And these were based on requests from and feedback that was received at the last meeting. Number one is actively promote opportunities for citizens to participate in board and commission meetings. Be working with the county clerk as well as you on doing that and sending those boards and commissions to the new website. And we will be working on that throughout the year.
Bob, I heard some good feedback about the presentation, you and the lady from Hagerstown, I should know her name. She was
Tara Sargent.
Yeah, and City Hagerstown girl was here, the lady. Yes, had some good feedback. One of the suggestions was to get those people interested in the committee to go visit, or to invite it. And that is a great suggestion to have them do, if any of them are listening.
Yeah, it's quite a work effort by Krista, and I appreciate the fact she took that on that Friday. Second is review the selection process for board and commission members to promote diversity and engagement of new members. Third, for new topics, is make visits to active projects, organizations, activities throughout the year. I would like to say that later today you will be doing 2 visits. One is to the YMCA, and second is to Garrett's Mill. We have done some other visits, and we'll program more visits to both projects and organizations throughout the new fiscal year upcoming, starting July 1st. Engage Washington County Health Department regarding the opioid-related strategic imperative. I will be working with the director there to bring to you more information and more progress on that strategic imperative. Engage media outlets and other venues to improve dissemination of public information regarding Washington County government. We have been doing that, working toward a strategy to do better self-promotion of all the good things going on here in Washington County. And with the accomplishments, we would like to release information throughout the course of the next several months on some of the significant accomplishments of Washington County staff and Washington County commissioners. Third, and new, enhance accountability in public safety for the most appropriate use of tax dollars. This isn't new, I don't believe, from the last time it was presented to you, but it was discussed today. So I wanted to bring up that this is not just a dusty list that gets put on the shelf each year. These are actually things that we do seek to accomplish, coming back to you at the end of the year saying we've met the goals as much as we possibly can. So that is for the commissioners' goals. If you have any changes, suggestions, we can certainly make those before it goes final. I know the final budget document is going to be printed quite soon.
Yeah, I wanted to see what ever happened to the, I was probably one of the first requests I ever made was, is the school board at all interested in have anybody participate in our government?
Yes. So we are going to have a student day, and we've been working with our administrative assistant regarding that. And I believe she's presented some of that information, but I'll get you an update on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So we will have a student day at least for beginners on that topic.
With the recent articles and stuff coming out of the city of Hagerstown, I would like to have a goal that, I know we're meeting in August with them, but to continue working together with the tax disparity, fire and EMS, and all of that together, so that we come together as a group and with a singular goal of growing not just Hagerstown and Washington County, and stop this bickering back and forth. I don't know how you can put that in better language.
Okay, well,
Sucker
certainly.
punch is a good language.
We'll certainly
Working together on the fire EMS situation, and I guess is it the disparity, the difference, tax differential?
Tax differential.
Yes, sir, we'll do that. Incorporate the particular language into the goals that are printed.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think a goal that I think we've already established, and we've been unanimous on it, is for our ad hoc ethics reform committee. They will have their recommendation during fiscal year 2020. I'd like to see that so drawn. I don't know if we have any update as to when they might first meet. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Krista.
Okay, so we will we'll get the exact language of that ad hoc committee and place that in here with the timing. First meeting being July, it's certainly fiscal year 2020. So I will include that. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to fiscal year 2020 goals for the county administrator. I'm not going to run through these. This is the third time you've seen them, but what I do want to focus is on three. Abundant energy, enthusiasm, and effort of staff to best serve our customers in each service line. There are often times that staff will work beyond 8 hours, that will come in early or answer the phone while they're off. Staff does considerable deal, and I think what you've done by awarding the July 5th off is certainly very kind recognition. I thank you very much, County Commissioners, for doing that. I know that on behalf of each and every staff member, that will be very much appreciated and enjoyed. So, next is execute the appropriate use of additional EMS funding for volunteers and staff. This will be certainly a large work effort. However, as I said, there's $5.2 million of taxpayer dollars that are involved here, so very worthwhile effort as we move through fiscal year 2020. And final, just as a highlight of goals, expand utility cost savings with the airport and building lighting efficiencies. Commissioner Mino-Schmidt was recently involved in a meeting working with the Board of Education. Comments have made, Commissioner Kiefer, you mentioned a comment today about the airport lighting. These are lighting efficiencies that are necessary. LED lighting, Potomac Energy, or First Energy, I should say, has a program that's offering up to 70% of the material be provided in certain instances to get more efficient lighting. So very worthwhile programs out there. Our engineering staff and other staff have been working on those, and I'm pretty excited about the potential return on investments from those. And we will, in fact, be working with various fire companies to help them install lighting or provide to them the lighting through Potomac Energy, that program, where they can reduce their utility costs that the county reimburses for. So good news there. Any comments, questions, concerns before I move on to accomplishments? With that, I would like to say that our county staff and elected officials deserve recognition for a variety of accomplishments in fiscal year 2019. The new board transitioned into the role of leadership immediately without missing a beat. Staff responded with insight and expertise to guide us through a challenging yet productive budget season. Public safety and education will lead in additional funding in fiscal year 2020. At the same time, the discretionary budget was reduced to meet revenue projections, which are trending in an upward conservative manner. Our theme of combining customer service and progress is alive and well in the fiscal year 2019 accomplishments and the fiscal year 2020 goals. So the last portion I have for you here is the 2019 accomplishments. They are, quite fortunately, lengthy. They're probably too lengthy to go in to detail on each one of them, but I did want to highlight some numbers for you to try to keep your attention. And here's some of the big ones. Collected over 500,000 pounds of litter and debris under the Clean County Initiative. I think this will find a great deal of success and support with Maryland Department of Environment, while we're spending millions of dollars less than some other organizations, and at the same time beautifying our streets and streams in Washington County. Broke ground on 2 new multi-million-dollar public-private partnerships, which also won a META award. Initiated testing of a commitment to customer service program. And the vision here is to see that every customer that submits any type of request gets a response by the next business day within 24 hours and is fully tracked so that we can entirely ensure that any question that comes into Washington County is not forgotten and does get a response. Very excited about that program at a off-the-shelf software approach, working with IT and various staff to develop that at a very low cost. Developed a 5-year operating budget with Budget and Finance and the CFO. Reduced the FY 2020 discretionary overhead budget by $7.5 million with the commissioner's input, suggestions, and that's approximately a 6% reduction for FY 2020. It's important to note that while we did have to make budget adjustments, that real estate and income tax revenue did go up. Real estate went up 2.0%. Income tax revenue 3.0% in what was only the result of success and economic development in Washington County. Some other big numbers to consider economically development-wise is fostered a business climate which added over 269 jobs. Those are from our economic development team, who has a breakdown of those jobs. $247 million in private investment in Washington County in fiscal year 2019. That's easily said, but that takes a year's worth of hard work to do. Completed design of $11.5 million training center to serve police, fire, and EMS. Initiated the improved EMS and fire accounting to track that $5.2 million I've now mentioned at least 3 times. Secured $200,000 grant at the Commission on Aging alone for expanded services for the seniors. Launched new Washington County government website thanks to our PR staff. Developed the Independent Economic Development Coalition, which is off and running now under its way and now has draft bylaws, which we think is going to be very successful. Fully executed push notification service to permit customers. This is a pretty big deal. I don't know if you're aware of, but through the permits office and through the software that was brought on about a year or 2 ago, we can now and are now, if a permit customer for inspection provides us their contact information, we will provide real-time information that sends them a notification that says your inspector is on their way to arrive for the inspection. It's another example of where we took what has been done in private industry and said we can do that here, and are doing that with software, no additional expense, just some additional effort to get the notice out to customers.
We can name that like Uber permit or something. DoorDash. Washington County DoorDash.
DoorDash
like
inspection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited about it. I think we've had very good feedback from the permit customers, inspection customers. Expanded Hagerstown Regional Airport commercial air service. That went by in a flash, but now there's service to Myrtle Beach. So you can get to Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Myrtle Beach, Sanford, Tampa, all from Hagerstown Regional Airport without paying any parking fees. Developed the strategic imperatives, which are included in your package. As I mentioned, recognized with the Media Award. And finally, I'll come back to, because you'll be going later there today, and this is my final one for you, is rebuilt roads and bridges damaged by the historic South County flood with volunteer assistance. So the companies in Potomac Valley and the Boonesboro Company should both be recognized for their immediate rush to service. I know Sharpsburg and some others provided support as well. I don't mean to say that the staff or the commissioners did this alone. This is through volunteer services, and the citizens by and large have been very patient with us while we took that 13 months to restore Garrett's Mill Bridge. So very successful year. I hope you see it the same way. And we're looking forward to fiscal year 2020 accomplishing the goals there.
Thank you.
Rob, just a couple of quick questions. Now, you said the real estate tax was up 2%. Do you have the total dollar amount for that?
I can get that for you, Terry.
Yeah.
if-
And then you said, I thought early on when we were discussing the budget, that I thought you said income tax was down. We weren't getting as much this year as we got the previous year. Now you're saying it's been increased 3.4%.
No, sir, the message has been completely consistent. It is a complex message, but it has been entirely consistent over time. And what that is to say is that the income tax was once projected, starting back to prior budgets, at approximately 6% increase year to year. And we have, with this budget, we have normalized that to a more steady 2% increase from year to year. So it is the projections which were increased, not the actual revenue. So I'm glad you point that out, because it's a very important point to make, that our revenue continues to increase. It simply didn't for a couple of years increase at a very high projection, which
So
was
our income
an
tax rate
anomaly.
has increased 3.4%. So what would
The
the
revenue, the
so what's
revenue
the total
from that.
dollar on that? You could,
Well, a few million.
okay,
Would
10 million, 20 million?
the 3%? No. We generally get approximately 70 million or so in income tax revenue per year. So, you know,
I
you
was
can,
just looking at the reduction of $7.5 million and then the increase of several $1 million. I'd just like to know what those numbers are.
the increase for fiscal year 19 is entirely accurate. We have had steady increases in our real estate revenue and our income tax revenue. The issue is that our budget was higher than our revenues. So our budget was projected higher than the increases that we have realized. So I think that's where the message can get a little bit muddy. And so what we've worked to do in 2020, even though we've had the income tax rate increase, we have worked to reduce our projections to a more modest 2% increase over what we actually realized the year before, or
In
what
fact,
we expect to
in
realize.
one budget, I believe that was projected to be a 6% increase
Yeah, but
in
I'm just
income tax.
interested in what you talked about here. So I just would
Yeah.
like to know what the 2% increase.
Sure, I'll get that to you.
Total dollars and then the 3.
In fact, I believe Sarah is presenting on July 9.
That's correct.
A complete overview of the handout that was provided to you and will be disseminated publicly for the
Yes, there's a fiscal and economic
fourth quarter?
update, third quarter
Third
for
quarter.
March, and that is available on our website if anyone is interested. And that was provided to the commissioners along with the most recent revenue update for May. Now, when I come to present to you July 9th, I will have updated numbers for June, which will be great because we're expecting one of our first reconciling distributions for income tax to come in at the end of June. So I'll have a little bit more information there. At this point, we had a large distribution for May. However, it was not substantially over what we had anticipated. It was right around what we had budgeted. So we still are projecting for the year. It does look like we're still going to come under budget for income tax for the year, fiscal year 2019. However, we're looking forward to some increases in the distributions to come, those reconciling distributions that I've been talking about that we'll get in the summer, the first one being at the end of June. So I'll have more information for you on July 9th.
Rob, anything else?
That's it. Thank you very much. And again, I want to thank you on behalf of all the staff for the July 5 consideration.
Commissioners, I'd ask for your consideration to go briefly into closed session to